What is the key to being able to play solos that sound like music and don't just sound like we're running up and down scales? Hello and welcome back to the channel on our continuing voyage to become better blues players. My name's Mark, and in this lesson we're going to be looking at blues phrasing. Okay, so the lesson is going to be in the key of A, 12-bar blues in the key of A, which means we're going to be using the A minor pentatonic scale, and that goes like this. And that's our first issue, because we're taught to play scales, to practice them like that, running up and down, where we're hitting each note nice and clear and clean and evenly. And that's not what music sounds like. So the first issue we have is we just played 12 notes. And we don't know which are the good notes, which are the less good notes, which notes we should hang on for a while, which notes we should target, which notes we should dance around, which ones we should kind of skim past. We just played 12 random notes. So that's our first issue. So the other thing is that when we're taught to play evenly. We're taught to play 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, like this all the way through the scale. But we don't play music like that, particularly in blues. That's not the beat we play. We play to a pulse, that's a shuffle. A 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 1, a 2, a 3. But we don't practice our scales like that. We practice 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, where we play everything nice and clean and evenly, which is not how we play blues. So, first thing we're going to do is figure out, of those 12 notes, which are the notes that we should be targeting. And then we're going to think about how we should actually be playing those notes, so we don't just sound like we're playing nice and clean and evenly, because that's not what music sounds like. Okay, so we're in the key of A. That means there are 3 chords. There's an A, which might be an A7. There's a D, could be a D7, and there's some kind of E. Again, might be an E7. Doesn't matter whether there's 7ths or not, but we have 3 chords. Some kind of A, some kind of D, and some kind of E. So over that A chord, this note here, right in the middle, 7th fret of the D string, that's our A note. That's the note that we're going to really target. Out of all of those 12 notes, that's the one that when we're on that A chord, we're going to spend the longest amount of time. We're going to rest on. We'll dance around it, we'll play around it, but that's the note that we're going to come to rest on. I was taught very early on, if you want to write a good lick that ends on the root note. Well, that's the root note. So you can play all these different notes, but land and end on that, and it'll always sound like it resolves. Okay, so we have that note. And when we play it and we rest on it, we're going to shake it, vibrato. Okay, so other notes that might be of interest. When we move to the D chord, we can temporarily target this and call this our home note. This is the D note, 7th fret G string. And when the chord goes to E, we can target this note here, 5th fret B string, because that's an E note. So out of all of those 12 notes, those are the 3 that we're really going to target, and we're going to kind of dance around and resolve our licks to. When we're over the A chord, it's going to be the 7th on the D. Over the D chord, it's going to be 7 on the G. And over the E chord, it's going to be 5 on the B string. At the end of this video, there's going to be an example solo with tab that illustrates this, so you've got an actual worked example. I always find the best way that I learned by example, so there's an actual example that puts all of this together in context. Okay, so we've distilled our 12 notes down. We can still use all of those notes, but those are the ones we're going to target. Those 3 are the ones we're going to target and land on the most. Okay, so if we know now which notes we're going to play, or which notes we're going to target, let's find some more interesting ways to play them. We're not just going to play each note clear and crisp and even and picked. We're not even going to pick every note. Some notes we can slide into. We might hammer onto a note. And what we're really going to focus on as blues players is what I call a dirty bend. Technically, it's bending a note slightly sharp. It's a microtonal bend, but don't worry about the technical terms for these things. Think of it as just taking a note I'm making it dirty, which adds tension before we then resolve to a nicer note. Okay, easier if I show you what I mean. I'm going to start with one note, make it dirty, and then resolve to a nice note. Okay, so what I'm doing there is I'm taking this note here, 5th fret G string, and I'm pulling it slightly sharp. I'm using my index finger, and I'm just kind of dragging it, kind of curling it, so it's going slightly, just slowly going slightly out of tune, and then I resolve back to the root note, the A, 7th on the D string, to make it all nice and resolve that and sweet again. So I call this a dirty bend. We're not bending up to a particular note, we're not aiming, we're just taking a note and dragging it out of tune. But the important thing is we can't drag it out of tune and hold it out of tune. We have to release that tension and resolve to a good note. In this case, the root note, 7th fret D string. Okay, so there are basically within the scale, or the pentatonic scale, there are 2 notes that we can do this dirty bend thing with that sound great. We never do it with that root note, the A, the D string. We never do it with that because that's just going to sound horrible and out of tune. We can do it with what we call a flat third and the flat 7. And the flat third is this one here where I was playing before, which is 5th fret G string. That's going to sound great. The other one is the flat 7. And there's actually 2 of those in that scale pattern. There's this one here, which is 8th fret of the B string. And we can do that and resolve back to the 5th fret, like this. Or we can do that and resolve to the toppy 5th fret. Okay, so that one, and there's another one of those, flat 7, that is just 2 frets below our root note, so we're on 5th fret of the D string. We can bend that one sharp and resolve to our root note, 7th fret D string, like this. Okay, and then we can combine those, the flat 7 and the flat 3, both those notes on the 5th fret, like this. And suddenly, out of that collection of 12 notes that we were playing our scale with, we now have got some musical ideas, some ways of playing them that sound more like the blues. Okay, so the next thing to think about is we've got the notes that we're going to target, we're going to go how we're going to play these notes. Now what we're going to do is think about, in the context of a solo, we're not just going to randomly play on and on and on through the solo. What we're going to do is we're going to play in short musical phrases. Okay, it's going to play a few notes and then rest on one of those target notes. Then play a few more notes and rest on the target note. Okay, and this idea of just playing in these short, sharp phrases is something that's really key to blues. It's really key to a lot of music, but particularly blues. So what we're going to do, in fact, let me give you an example. What do I mean? Where we're leaving those gaps. I'm going to put a backing track on and I'm just going to improvise playing in these little kind of short, sharp phrases. Here we go. Okay, so that was just a simple little example. Hopefully it illustrates kind of just playing in these short, sharp bursts. I wasn't actually focusing too much on what I was playing, it was just improvising. But the thing I was mostly thinking about was little phrases spaced out. Okay, so what you're going to see now is me playing a pre-recorded solo where I've brought all these ideas together. I'm targeting those key notes that we talked about early on. I'm finding interesting ways to play the notes. So you're going to see slides, you're going to see hammer-ons, you're going to see those dirty bends. The idea of the solo is it's really, really easy. So all the licks are really super easy. And what I've done is as I say, first of all, target those notes. Second of all, interesting ways to play notes. And third of all, playing in short phrases with gaps between them. We'll come back on the other side. There's tab available and I'll take you through the solo lick by lick. So here's the example. Okay, so that was the example there. There is tab available for that. There's going to be tab on screen as I take you through the licks, but there's also tab available as a PDF if you'd like a copy. It's paid for by the patrons. It's made available free to anybody who watches this video. Drop me an email. My details are in the description below. Big thank you to the Patreon supporters who make all of this possible by keeping the channel going, and also a big thank you to those who donate to the PayPal tip jar, because that keeps the channel going as well. So those two things are what makes the tab available. So I have to have the tab professionally produced, and that's paid for by the PayPal supporters and those who donate to the tip jar. Okay, so and there's a backing track as well, and there's a link to that in the description below. So what I'll do now is I'll take you through all the licks one by one. So it starts in the key, it starts with an A chord, and we get this lick here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, and I'll do it nice and slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, couple of things to notice. We've got those dirty bends coming in on that flat third, 5th fret of the G string. And when we finally resolve to 7th on the D string, I'm giving it a shake. Okay, so that's lick 1, that's our first phrase. That was over the A chord. Then we get to lick 2, this is the second phrase, and again, this is also over the A chord. And that goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, so again, we're targeting this note, 7th fret, D string, and whenever we're landing there, for any length of time, we are giving it a shake and a bit of vibrato. Okay, couple of interesting things about this. We've got a dirty bend. We've got actually it starts with a slide into the 7 on the A string, so you get to slide into a note. Doesn't matter where you're sliding from. You can kind of aim from about 2 frets down, but it doesn't actually matter. The important thing with this type of slide is where you're finishing. So you must aim, we make sure that we end the slide on that 7th fret of the A string. So it's more important where it ends, not where you start from. Okay, so we slide in, then we've got a little run, and that includes this dirty bend, again on that flat third. Now, the second half of the lick then plays this. I'll play it again for you, nice and slow. Okay, now there's something interesting going on with the way I'm playing this, because what we've got is we start 5th fret of the G string, then 7th fret of the G string, then 7th fret of the D string, and we don't play it like this. Okay, what we're doing is actually crossing my fingers and playing that second note with my middle finger. Now, that's interesting because when we practice our scale, we don't use our middle finger to play that note. Whether we're going up or down, we only ever use our ring finger to play that note. But because of this lick being the way it is, playing both the 7th fret of the the 7th fret of the G and the 7th fret of the D with the ring finger is really tricky. So what we do is we cross our fingers. We play 7 on the G with our ring finger, 7 on the D with our middle finger, before then going back to a traditional way of playing it. Okay, so that second part, again, nice and slow. Okay, so that one is a little bit tricky. I deliberately threw that in to kind of get us breaking out from just the way we'd normally play scales. Okay, so that was lick 2. Lick 3 then moves to the D chord. So now our kind of the target of our licks is going to be 7th fret of the G string. And so lick 3 goes like this. A 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, starting with 2 hammer-ons, 5 to 7 on the G string. Okay, and again, why am I using hammer-ons? Well, it just makes it a little bit more interesting than if I just straight picked every note. Nothing too tricky about that. That's over the D chord. The interesting thing is that we're targeting this D note, G string, 7th fret, and giving it a shake when we finally hold on to it. And then there's a little pause, the chord changes back, and then we go to lick 4. Lick 4 is over the A chord, and it goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, and I'll do it nice and slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, nothing too special about it. It's got a dirty bend, it's got a shake on the when it resolves to the A note 7th fret of the D string. That was over the A chord. Now we're up to lick 5. We're over the E7 chord, and we're going to target this note here, 5th fret of the B string, and that goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Nice and slow now. Actually, first bar we're targeting this note here because that's over the E7 chord. Halfway through the lick, the underlying chord progression moves to a D7 chord or a D chord. So we're going to target this one here, 7th fret of the G string. So I'll play the whole lick again nice and slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, so now we're up to the final lick. Lick 6, this is over the A chord to the E7 chord. And what we're going to do is we're going to start by targeting this A note here, but end by targeting this E note here. 7th fret of the A string, which is actually the same pitch, it's the same note as our E note up here, it's just that it's an octave below, so that's why I'm targeting it there. But it's basically the same idea. Okay, and that goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, and nice and slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Again, we've got a slide, we've got a dirty bend, then we come dirty bend flat 3 to the root here. So dirty bend on G string, 5th fret. And then as we change to the E chord, we've got these 2 dirty bends on the flat 7th note, which is 5th fret of the D string, resolving to 7th fret of the A string. Okay, and basically those dirty bends resolving to the root, like this one here. Whenever we put that in a lick, whether it's at the start of the lick, in the middle, or at the end, it doesn't matter. Whenever you got that, it really makes it sound bluesy. To me, it's kind of like the real essence of the blues. Just pulling that one note before resolving back to the root. That's what sounds like really bluesy to me. So you put all that together and you've got 12 bar blues with individual little blues phrases. We haven't stepped out of the minor pentatonic shape. That 12 note shape that we started with, we haven't moved out of there. We've just played those notes. But hopefully it sounds a lot more musical playing in these little phrases as opposed to it's not supposed to sound like we're just running up and down a scale. Okay, so I hope you've found that useful. Next lesson is going to kind of continue on this, but kind of spreading along the fretboard a little bit more. I'm going to show you an alternative fingering for the A minor pentatonic, which means that we can get even more bluesy sounds out of it. So it's going to be another beginner lesson. I hope you've enjoyed this beginner lesson. Take care, I'll see you again.